Sure, absolutely.
Well, I said, I said, hey, Joe, no, don't get a picture. I said hello already. How are you? Javier Beccera. Hey there, Xavier Beccera.
We're on the cameras.
Sure. How are you?
Morning, nice to see you.
Your name?
Verna, known you.
Pleasure to meet you. Hello there. How are you?
My name is Dee.
Edie, how are you?
Hi. How are you?
Javier. You don't need to get out.
Good morning, everyone. I apologize if I didn't have a chance to go around and take care of you. Good morning.
Yeah, we're ready.
Yes.
Good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome you all here. On behalf of the Reno-Sparks Indian Colony, I would like to welcome you to our community. Reno-Sparks Indian Colony has over 1,300.
I'll turn them off.
I know.
Mr. Chairman, that's not the way I wanted things to start.
You're an icebreaker. Anyway, Reno-Sparks Indian Colony has over 1,300 tribal members from the Washoe, Paiute, and Shoshone tribes. Our health center serves all of the Washoe County's native population. We are so proud of our people and of our accomplishments that we are deeply thankful for the recognition you bring us today. For a meaningful start to this session, we have a tribal council member, Toby Stump, performing an honor song, followed by Cheryl Johnson, who will provide us with an invocation to start off in a good way. Thank you.
Awuma, New Cheryl Johnson, Minani, New Kui, Pawe Tu,
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cheryl Johnson. I'm a member of the Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe, and I have been a staff member here for 21 years. I was asked to do the opening prayer for this gathering this morning, and I must say I'm highly honored to be able to share some good words and blessings with all of you, visiting dignitaries and Secretary Beccera. We welcome you here. We're so excited to have you visit. Before we go into prayer, I would like to welcome you all to the Great Basin area where our people, the Washoe, Paiute, and Shoshone, have lived and thrived since time immemorial. Let us all get in an attitude of prayer this morning. If we could all bow our heads, please. As in all things, we Native people start our day with prayer. Our Heavenly Father, Creator God, Maker of all things in the universe, we come before you this day to thank you for our many blessings. We acknowledge all people in the four directions and pray your blessings upon them. We are thankful for the water, air, food, and plants that you have given us to sustain and nourish our bodies daily. Keep our Mother Earth strong, for without a strong Mother Earth, we will cease to exist. We lift up those that are in need of healing, those that are incarcerated, the homeless, our precious elderly, and our children. There are so many that have faced loss, not only in our communities, but worldwide as well. We pray for their comfort during this holiday season. We pray for those that are in the military forces, guide and protect the men and women that protect and fight for our country. We also pray for those in authority in government positions. Heavenly Father, open their spiritual eyes to see the needs of the people. Give us all the strength and courage to live good lives on this earth, to show our young ones a better way of life. For all these blessings, we say thank you, Pijat you. We thank you for your love and healings of our minds, souls, and bodies, for providing every necessity to live in a good way on this earth. Bless all that are here today for this event, and that all will be well at their home fires when they return to their loved ones. We are truly a blessed people. Blessings be upon you in your travels, Secretary Beccera. We thank you so much for coming to visit. Bijat Tumia, go in a good way. Puwa, puwa.
Waklisi, Tusi Madiksha, Dakma Silikata Gechi. Good morning, everyone. Secretary, thank you for being here. My name is Angie Wilson. I'm the Tribal Health Director for the Reno-Sparks Indian Colony. We want to welcome Secretary. We're going to call him up here in a second, and I wanted to say a few words about Secretary. I cannot roll my R's like Cheryl, so I'm just letting you know. Xavier Beccera is the 25th Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services and the first Latino to ever hold the office in the history of the United States. As Secretary, he's been working with President Biden's vision to build a healthy America, and his work continues to focus on ensuring that all Americans have health security and access to health care. Throughout his career, the Secretary has made it his priority to ensure that Americans have access to the affordable health care they need to survive and thrive, from his early days as a legal advocate representing individuals with mental illness to his role as the Attorney General of the state of California. Secretary Beccera served 12 terms in Congress as a member of the United States House of Representatives. During his tenure, he was the first Latino to serve as a member of the powerful Committee on Ways and Means. He served as chairman of his party's caucus and as the ranking member of the Ways and Means Subcommittee on Social Security and ranking member of the Subcommittee on Health. For over 2 decades in Congress, Secretary Beccera worked so that every family had the assurance of care that his own family had when he was growing up. As a member of the Ways and Means Committee, Secretary Beccera introduced legislation, the Medicare Savings Program Improvement Act of 2007, that expanded cost-sharing subsidies for low-income seniors who receive both Medicare and Medicaid benefits by increasing the amount of resources they could receive. He championed provisions of the Medicare Improvements for Patients and Providers Act of 2008 that required physicians who perform imaging to be accredited and trained to ensure patient safety. And he was one of the original co-sponsors of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, known as the ACA, which has significantly impacted us in tribal communities, which helped to strengthen Medicare and lower costs for seniors. As Attorney General of the state of California, Secretary Beccera helped to promote competition by taking on a number of pharmaceutical companies that restricted competition through pay-for-delay schemes, held several companies accountable for legal violations for not protecting patients' health information, and took action early in the pandemic to keep Californians safe by using his authority to protect workers from exposure to COVID-19, to secure key safeguards for frontline healthcare workers' rights, and to take on fraudsters trying to take advantage of people during the pandemic. In addition, he cracked down on Medicare and Medicaid fraud, acted to combat the opiate crisis, including holding drug makers accountable, won an unprecedented $575 million antitrust settlement against one of the largest healthcare systems in California, and he led the 3-year federal court fight to save the ACA, and with it, protections of the 133 million Americans with pre-existing health conditions, a lot who reside in our tribal communities. Born in Sacramento, Secretary Beccera is the son of working-class parents. He was the first in his family to receive a 4-year degree, earning his Bachelor's of Arts in Economics from Stanford University. He earned his Juris Doctorate from Stanford Law School. His mother was born in Jalisco, Mexico, and immigrated to the United States after marrying his father, a day laborer turned construction worker. He's married to Dr. Carolina Reyes, and he is proud of his 3 daughters, Clarissa, Olivia, and Natalia, and son-in-law, Ivan. So we welcome you, Chair.
Andy, TMI, too much information. But I thank you for going through that, especially the last part, because that's what lets you launch, right? When you have a good base and a good family, it lets you launch. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for let me be here. Jeff Reynoso, Dr. Reynoso, who is the leader of our Region 9 that covers all of this area, including Nevada, Arizona, California, Hawaii. If there are any things that we can do, please, reaching Jeff is like reaching me, and I hope you'll take full advantage of that. Can I just say a couple of things that I think are really important that aren't in my remarks? I really enjoy when we start off meetings like this with a remembrance of culture, ancestors, and I don't think enough folks do that. It also gives you a chance to just calm down, contemplate. But I appreciate both the spirit in which it was done, and of course, recognizing that at the end of the day, we owe someone way beyond us for our opportunities here today. And so it really, for me, is a great way to start meetings. Most of the meetings I go to don't start that way, but I just gotta tell you, I really appreciate it. I also very much appreciate when you use your native tongue to begin. I'm fortunate I can speak in Spanish, and I am very proud of the fact that I can communicate with so many people, both in English and in Spanish. And even at HHS, we have a program in place within IHS to try to help maintain language among the various tribes throughout the country, because it is so important that folks remember where they came from. And there's no better way to do that but with language. It is certainly hard to remember where you came from if no one is speaking the language anymore of your ancestors. So I just have to say that because it gives me a great deal of pride to be able to say that we're such an important element for Indian country in making sure that not just the healthcare is addressed, but the culture, the learning, the experiences are also brought forward. And so, Angie, in so many ways, what you do here is more than just do healthcare. You make people remember who the folks are that stood this up and who you're trying to help as well. Just a couple of quick remarks that I have to make because I'm the secretary of HHS. First, I hope everybody here is vaccinated for COVID, right? You're about to, I hope, enjoy the rest of December and really hug and kiss all those relatives. Grandma isn't as healthy as she used to be. And cousin Jane or Joe may be a bit immunocompromised. They cannot afford to have a loved one be the person that infects them with COVID, because there's still Americans in this country who are dying of COVID. I get the numbers every week. Tens of thousands of people are being hospitalized as we speak throughout the country because of COVID. COVID is still one of the main killers of Americans today. And so please, I would be remiss if I didn't ask each and every one of you to make sure that you and I'm in a health center, so I'm hoping that it's not a message I have to say very loudly, but I hope everyone you know is taking full advantage. Because I know when I get home and I hug my 90-year-old mother, I'm going to be safe. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to make sure anybody who wants to touch my mom, did you get vaccinated? Because I want her to be safe. She has not had COVID yet. And that's because we have made sure we protect her. And she's also done all the things that she needs to do as well. The next thing I want to tell you is that, and I think Admiral Wiki can also attest to this. At Indian Health Services, we know we have to up our game. And we're going to keep pushing Congress as we up our game, that they up their resources to up our game. Because we need to be able to have centers that are like this all over the place. Because I will tell you, just as I start off by saying what makes you feel good and proud about being somewhere, when you walk through the doors of a facility and you're about to turn over your health, your body to somebody, you want to know you can trust them. How better than to know that they're respecting you and they're giving you dignity by giving you a center that makes you feel good to walk through. When you walk through the doors of this center, you feel pretty good. It looks like folks want to care for you because the facility seems to have what it takes. It's not treating you like a second or third class person. You're getting the best. And that's one thing we want to do, is make sure that no one in America thinks that they're getting second class, third class treatment in healthcare. Whether it's because they're getting their service at an Indian Health Service, or they're getting Medicaid services, or they're getting the CHIP program services, or they're getting Obamacare. No, we want folks to know high quality. And that's something that President Biden has really pounded on us. It's got to be right. You want people to walk away feeling good and proud. And so that's what we're trying to do. So I am thrilled to be here. Angie, thank you for opening up the doors and letting me meet some of the tremendous people who make this facility work so well. Mr. Chairman and former Mr. Chairman, I say to you, thank you very much. To my team who's here to answer any questions as well, we're very proud to be here with you. And I will close by saying this. It's not easy to get where we want to be. I say that because, never had anybody in my family who'd had gotten that bachelor's degree. You don't know what you're going to experience. It's not easy becoming an attorney, becoming the secretary, whatever you have an opportunity. But once you get there, shame on you if you don't take advantage. Because who knows how long you're going to get to have that opportunity, right? So I always tell my team, never do mild. If you had a chance to get to this point and make a difference, never do mild. Do it with gusto, or as we say in Spanish, con ganas. And I always tell people, don't look up the word; it won't mean the same. Ganas, desire. Yeah, desire, but no, ganas is guts, grit, and game all in one. So let's do things with ganas, because there are a whole bunch of folks who depend on us to do it, because there aren't many spots like this. And once you get in it, you do not have the luxury to do mild. So I want to be with you. Let's hit this out of the park. I'm looking forward to your questions and your thoughts. And Angie, once again, to you and your team, thank you for opening your doors.
Thank you so much, Secretary. Secretary. We appreciate that and are really honored to have you here. We're going to go through a really quick presentation just to kind of highlight some of the same sentiment that you talked about a little bit here today in regards to COVID, how important the COVID vaccine is, make sure that we're keeping our families safe. So I'm not sure if you can see that. I'm going to back up a little bit so you can see here. Okay, so we certainly welcome you here. We want to start by just highlighting, and I will say, you know, work with a lot of different tribes over my time, but the leadership that has happened here with the Reno-Sparks Indian Colony has been second to none. They led the way, they led the charge in COVID vaccines, mitigation. They look to provide information that a lot of our Northern Nevada tribes and California tribes look to be able to use their mitigation strategies to assist in their tribal communities. They provided COVID housing to make sure that our multi-generational homes had pathways to deter the spread of COVID-19. They provided COVID assistance, and that looked like a number of things, providing masks, sanitizer, cleaning supplies, having stockpile, doing food sovereignty. And one of the best things that they did was put together a COVID vaccine incentive program for their tribal community, which shot those numbers up for making sure that people got vaccinated. So they did an excellent job. They took the leadership role because it was a scary time to make sure that they were the first to, you know, kind of promote getting the shot. So they did an excellent job there. You can see this is a shot that we've taken with the National Guard before we got COVID vaccines. We were doing so much testing, so many folks coming through and collaborated closely. We also got assistance from one of your programs. The CDC sent an epidemiologist on site to assist us with tracking COVID and helping to get us underway, which is virtually unheard of in the middle of this pandemic. So we appreciated that. Of course, the leadership of Indian Health Services, the Phoenix Area Unified Command, and our local agencies as well. This is a picture that was at a very emotional time for us. This was the delivery of the very first COVID vaccines to arrive here, 50 vaccines. Very emotional time because this community lost so many folks during the COVID pandemic. Here's that team. This is a Reno-Sparks Tribal Health Center vaccination team with the arrival. And we wanted to know, like we saw on the tour, we were the only tribe to have an ultra-cold freezer. We housed those vaccines to support the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe, the Fallon Shoshone Paiute tribe, the Washoe tribe of California and Nevada, and also the Walker River Paiute tribe. So yeah, it was a momentum of all of us working together to make that happen. And currently, as of today, we have given over 7,500 COVID vaccines out of this clinic, plus one that you just saw. In fact, one of our staff members, Alvin Willie, was the very first individual to ever get a COVID vaccine for the entire Northern Nevada tribal community, and I've been here in this clinic. We wanted to support also our tribal leadership here, our health executive board for their support. The chairmanship is always served on the Secretary's Tribal Advisory Committee. And of course, NCAI, they've allowed their tribal health director, myself, to sit on the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid's Tribal Technical Advisory Group, working to support the Phoenix area office. And so they've done an excellent job to be not only leaders in their local community, but to have health advocacy on a much larger scale. Some of the key things, and I won't go into all of them, but just to show, we've had key state plan amendments that have been raised here by the Reno-Sparks Indian Colony and through the Tribal Health Center that supported the expansion of access to care, the expansion of billable encounters, the expansion of what we can bill for, being able to expand and work with our state partners to expand healthcare coverage in and out of the four walls, 1115 dental waivers for diabetic patients with type 1 and type 2. And of course, we went through a process with the state's departments, the Department of Healthcare, Finance and Policy, Welfare and Supportive Services, to look at creating a pathway to assist with COVID unwinding. And it looks like the Tribal Affairs Group with CMS may be picking that up as a best practice that'll be used with states and tribes across the nation. Of course, we led the pathway specifically on developing a subcommittee, a new subcommittee under TTAC with managed care organizations. And this is the picture of the Reno-Sparks Tribal Health Center hosting the very first MCO work group meeting here to support the brand new toolkit that came out of CMS. We've also, the tribal leadership just recently passed all of our policies in regards to tribal sponsorship, where we've been working really close with Russell Cook from the Nevada Health Link with the Silver State Health Insurance Exchange to be able to create a pathway to purchase health insurance for individuals who are over income for Medicaid and too young for Medicare, helping to stretch our limited PRC dollars even further. In addition to that, though, the Tribal Council also included that we can do Medicare Part B and Part D for our senior population. So they've supported the policies, they've supported the budget, and we will be working as that as one of our primary priorities for 2014. We've been involved with the development of Nevada's Health Equity Action Plan and support all of the initiatives that have been proposed to the Secretary's Tribal Advisory Committee by the National Indian Health Board. And of course, our tribal health care priorities continue to center around access to care, workforce support, and sustainability and funding. And I'll just leave with this. I'm sure you've seen this graph. This is a huge issue for us, is affordable health care and being able to have adequate funding in Indian country, and we appreciate the Biden administration for supporting advanced appropriations. We are a recent recipient of the 105L lease funds, and all the work you saw with the projects we have that we detailed on our tour is a result of what we can now claim to get some of those funds back to support keeping a facility of this size in top shape for exactly what you talked about, is quality of care that's provided here and that feeling of wellness. But we want to just also say, in regards to the IHS per capita spending, we're only at 50% to the nearest federal health program expenditure in Indian health services across the board. But we are the population that does have a trust, there is a trust responsibility by our federal government to our First Nations folks, and that promulgates some of the comments that we want to have a little bit of discussion on today. So thank you so much for being here and supporting from your agencies all of the work that allowed us to happen at the tribal level. Thank you so much.
Again, my name is Arlen Melendez, former chairman of Reno-Sparks and Colony. I want to welcome you, Secretary Beccera. We have a position paper for you with some priorities, but we want to thank you for the opportunity to highlight our activities, and we feel strongly that collaboration with all our local and federal stakeholders brings significant progress and understanding. To that end, we have outlined several matters in a document that will be provided to you, and we look forward to your response and continued partnership. Today we have prepared some key talking points and questions for consideration and discussion. Again, we appreciate your support of the Reno-Sparks Indian Colony, our tribal advocacy, and all of our American Indian Alaska Native people. I'll go ahead and ask the first question. Many tribes and tribal organizations have voiced support for tribal set-aside funding throughout the agency, including the National Indian Health Board, who passed a resolution for a 10% set-aside across Health and Human Services. Will the Health and Human Services commit to supporting policy changes that establish flexible, formula-based, and stable resources for tribes and tribal organizations?
Mr. Chairman, what I can tell you is that we continue to expand the scope of programs that are available within HHS, beyond IHS, for Native communities. We are looking for opportunities to partner with tribes and their health agencies to try to provide more services, and we're certainly trying to boost IHS so that it can be a more robust agency when it comes to dealing specifically with Indian country. We also have to deal with the laws that are in place, that Congress put in place. So we are required to stick within the prescriptions of the law. And so, for example, doing a set-aside would probably not be permissible in most of the funding we get. because we don't have the authority to simply do a set aside for one purpose or one community. That would have to come through Congress changing the statutory language that drives the dollars that we spend. But we are certainly working towards getting Congress to recognize that they have to do more. I don't know if you know of any previous administration that has worked as hard as President Biden to actually move funding for Indian Health Services from the discretionary pot of money, which means every year, as we see right now in Congress going through this process where they nearly shut down because they're trying to do the discretionary funding. That appropriations process, without it, many of the programs that are administered through discretionary dollars have to shut down because we have no authority in the Constitution to operate without the resources. Indian Health Services falls in the discretionary pot, unlike Medicaid or Medicare, which fall in the mandatory pot. So funding for those programs is not based on what Congress allocates on a budget every year. It's required by law to go automatically. So based on the population, based on the programs, Medicare gets its money, whether or not government is shut down or not. We have been trying, under this president, and I know no other president, to try to move IHS funding from the discretionary pot, which is based on every year having Congress go through its political shenanigans to determine whether IHS will have its money, to move that money, IHS money, into the mandatory pot so that every year it's guaranteed. And while we didn't succeed last year, we did succeed in getting, as Angie mentioned, advanced appropriations. And so you know the difference between a regular appropriation and advanced appropriations is essentially every year you get the money ahead of time. So you get your money in advance. You know what your money will be for next year, and you're going to get it for next year. So had the government shut down in November, when it looked like it might on November 17th, all the IHS programming, all the monies that you get from IHS would have ceased. But with advanced appropriations, it would not. It would continue because we would have already gotten that money approved for that coming year. And so we want to at least continue the advanced appropriations, but we're fighting for mandatory appropriations. That's one way we're trying to help. But we know, as the chart shows, that the resources have not been placed there. I could have helped you when I was a member of Congress more. Now, as the secretary, I have no votes in Congress to get more money. But I will tell you, we are fighting. And you look at President Biden's budget, and we have every year proposed substantial increases in funding for tribal communities when it comes to health care, but specifically within IHS.
Mr. Secretary.
By the way, that's to say, I can't give you the answer you want right now.
I'll ask the second question. How is Health and Human Services and all agencies under this umbrella working with tribes and tribal organizations to begin implementing self-governance expansion across the programs?
Well, first, we're going where you are, not waiting for you to come to us. And that's why I thank Angie for letting us come here today. HHS is a little different from most agencies, maybe only Interior. Some degree, maybe VA does anything similar because we have an agency that is specifically for Indian country, right? IHS. Interior does as well. And we probably have the largest assembly of Native Americans in our department in federal workforce than does anybody because of IHS. More than 10,000 people are of Indian ancestry who work at HHS. Most departments have a hard time telling you they're anywhere, close to getting even the parity of population. But what we do is we try to work closely where we can. IHS one specifically, but as I mentioned to you, all of our programs, SAMHSA, Administration for Children and Families, CDC, NIH, we're trying to reach out more. Quick example, NIH does phenomenal research. That research depends on clinical trials. Clinical trials are most reliable when they reflect the population that they're trying to serve. Diabetes. I dare say you don't have to look very far to find someone in Indian country who has diabetes. But our are Indian, those of native ancestry, are Indians being included in the clinical trials that are going to be done to tell us how to best treat diabetes? If not, then we may get really good results for white men, but maybe not for Indian men and women. And so what we are doing is now pushing NIH to make sure that its clinical trials reflect the population it's serving. And the best example of that is what we've done now on long COVID. NIH has the largest study going on long COVID. We delayed the actual implementation of the clinical studies because I didn't see a level of representation of the various communities that were impacted by COVID. And I think you know that in Native communities, COVID hit hard. And so we ensured that the people who participate in the trials are coming from our communities and throughout the country who got hit. And there's where we can use your help to make sure that we continue to have people coming forward who can serve on trials. We need people to come forward to serve on, we have a whole bunch of boards and commissions and committees and councils that advise all of our different agencies. We need more representation from Indian country on those. So we're going to do everything we can to continue to have HHS reflect the people it's supposed to serve, period, but also fulfill our requirements under the Constitution.
Thank you, Secretary, for the answers to that, because I think that one of the things that you pointed to was having more involvement on clinical trials. And I can tell you that during the COVID process, it was one of the key things that we did look at is that American Indians and Alaska Natives did take participation because there was so much fear in Indian country. And some of that fear is grounded in the historical trauma. And we talk a lot about the impact of historical trauma on our people, initiatives that have come through, in the history of this nation that haven't always been positive. But the commitment to try to move forward to create paths for health equity, behavioral health services and access, and all of those things moving forward, we can see that American Indians and Alaska Natives in the opiate use, in the death rate for overdose in American Indian communities is staggering above any other ethnic population across this nation. And so those things are things that worry me as a tribal health administrator. It worries our executive health board. It worries our tribal leadership, our professionals on how to get our hands around this. And so with that, what is the HHS and SAMHSA doing to ensure that tribes are central to the expansion and capacity building of culturally informed crisis response, trauma-informed services, behavioral health services, health equity, because we have to deal with some of the things in the past. And one thing I just will say, and it's probably not intended to be political, but one of the things that we don't talk about is what we see on TV happening between Palestine and Israel. It's awful. We hope that that comes through okay for everyone, but what it's done is reignited concerns about genocide that's happened in our own tribal communities. So we want to know, what is the commitment from your agency to assist having tribes being at the center for having creative pathways on how we are going to get through these issues in tribal communities?
So I have to first say, Angie, thank you for reflecting, not just expressing, but reflecting the angst that people feel. I think too many Americans probably would have watched you or heard you and not quite understood what you were trying to express because they've never been through that. But for communities who've experienced that type of dehumanization, there is an issue that it rings the bell. Quick example. You mentioned how in Indian country there might on occasion be hesitation on some to get vaccinated. Because it hasn't always been the case that when the federal government comes calling, it's always going to be a good deal. When we would go into the Black community, same thing. I would have people say to me, remember Tuskegee. Some of you may remember it. There was an experiment that was conducted on men relating to syphilis, where Black men were used to test how we could treat syphilis, but they weren't handled the same way as they were with the other subjects of the trials. They were essentially used more like guinea pigs to see whether they would live or die. And so there's some angst, apprehension in other communities as well. And so what you're expressing, I think, goes very deeply, and I appreciate that you express it. But let me tell you what we are doing. We have, in the time that I've been here as HHS Secretary, we have begun to incorporate what I call equity by design. So if one of our agencies is going to put out a proposal or an initiative or a program, I don't want it to be an afterthought. Oh gosh, we forgot to include Native Americans in that clinical trial for diabetes. By then it's too late. So many steps have already been taken. You got to move now. So rather than, as an afterthought, remember what you forgot, at the beginning, you have to design your proposal, your program, to include that. And in this case, you have to design your initiative, your spending plan with equity in it. So if your plan doesn't show me how you're going to make sure it's equitably dispersed, then it doesn't launch. And so whether it was the long COVID clinical trials, or whether it's now, when you mentioned on substance use disorder, opioids, where we know tribal communities have suffered probably more disproportionately than most other communities, we now have programs that are specifically geared for Indian country, not within IHS already has stuff, but within SAMHSA, that are specific for tribal communities. Now, where I will agree with you is we got to put more money in it, but we're doing some of those things. By the way, I should mention one of the things that we're doing that we've done well at HHS, the STAC, the Secretary's Tribal Advisory Committee. We started that. Today, most of the departments, federal governments have one. Most of them use our model on how they should establish their stacks. But we go farther than most. Every time we have stack meetings, you're going to see not just me, but the leadership of NIH, FDA, CDC, ACF, all our folks, because it is important. And not just important, again, it's a government-to-government relationship, and we owe that to tribal countries. So we take it very seriously. And if you see some spots, some areas where you think HHS is falling short, I'll give you my email address to let me know. CC me when you're writing those agency heads.
Well, we appreciate the answers that you provided, and certainly, there's a lot of hard work going on, like we've said, with the STAC, also with CMS, Tribal Technical Advisory Group. A lot of the initiatives coming out of these cables really affect tribes across the nation in being able to provide opportunities to close the gap on some of these disparities in funding. But I think that we all acknowledge the significant support that the Biden administration has provided in Indian country around some major milestones that you've mentioned today. And so we appreciate you being here. This is the first time we've seen the Secretary out here in Northern Nevada. I just really want to appreciate you taking the time to meet with our tribal leadership, our executive health board, our clinic leadership, and of course we have some of our colleagues, our stakeholders from Tribal Liaison, Monica Schiffer from the Department of Healthcare, Finance and Policy, Russell Cook from the Nevada Health Link, and Stacy Montooth, the Director of the Nevada Indian Commission. So we appreciate that. I will tell you that your agency, Indian Health Services, and the support that we get from the team at the Phoenix area office is second to none. They have been extremely helpful on many occasions. We've just been a new recipient of our 105L lease. We've got immediate support from the Phoenix area to come out and meet with tribal leadership on that, and they continue to be a support. And also Director Reynoso, your programs are responsible for approving the state plan amendments that come out and the advocacy that we're doing here with our partners at the state. We can't thank you enough because, like we've mentioned before, some of the state plan amendments that have gone through have doubled the amount of third-party revenue it takes to sustain healthcare for over 5,000 active American Indians, Alaska Natives right here out of this clinic, let alone all of our clinics in this state specifically. So we just want to acknowledge the hard work and the collaborative effort that we have with your team as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Angie.
I think if we have any questions from press,
Are we at that point?
I think so.
Thank you.
I don't know how much time we have, and I don't know how many press questions there might be, but we didn't have a chance to let anybody else
Yeah.
add anything. And I know time is short, so we can't get into a monologue. But if somebody else wanted to say something just briefly, especially if you have an assignment for us. Because I want to make sure, I don't want you to think that I'm just going to come and we get to talk, and then we sort of ride into the sunset. As I said, test us, push us, never do harm. Yes, go ahead, Cece.
Mr. Secretary, thank you again for your time. Pisha, I'm Stacy Monteith. I'm a citizen of the Walker River Paiute Nation, and I'm the Executive Director of the Nevada Indian Commission. I'm here on behalf of Governor Lombardo. I want to expand on something that you said earlier about what Angie and her staff do here is so beyond healthcare. My ask of you is to go back to DC and tell your colleagues, this is what sovereignty looks like. This is what happens when the federal government keeps its word and allows these amazing tribal leaders to use their creativity to come to the table with cultural competence and design programs that are effective to our respective communities.
Okay, and again, we may have to shortchange a little bit of the press, but we'll do that fast. But I would say, first, amen to what you just said, Stacy. And by the way, I think you're going to find that more and more, HHS is with those of you who want to see more self-governance. And to let tribes handle more and more on, at least my shop, it's healthcare. So more and more self-governance governance means letting tribes decide what the healthcare looks like, where it's done. We just provide help with the resources to make sure it happens. But I will, a quick comment, having been a former member of Congress and then as the Attorney General of California, you better work on sovereignty, because there are some people who would love to snatch that away and who are willing to move this through a Supreme Court that might undermine what the Constitution explicitly said. And so I just urge you to work on that, because sovereignty should be a given because it's in the Constitution. And some people say the Constitution, the original version of it, is what counts. There are some people who will figure out ways to make sovereignty look like it's just a business interest. And so I urge you, you have something precious, which, by the way, you didn't earn it, you were owed it based on how you were treated. So the sovereignty is something you owe tooth and nail, con ganas. Ganas, you gotta fight for, because there are some people who would throw away your sovereignty in a heartbeat. Anyone else real quickly?
Secretary, I'm Russell Cook. I'm the Executive Director of Nevada Health Inc. We're the ACA administering entity in Nevada. And on behalf of our entire team, I just wanted to remark what an honor and privilege it's been to work with Director Wilson, a number of our other tribal health directors throughout the state, to develop what we're calling our tribal sponsorship program. Health equity to us largely means reaching Nevadans in their communities and empowering members of those communities to take care of their own. And to that end, we developed a certification program modeled after the Navigator program from the ACA, which allows employees of tribal health clinics to provide application counseling and enrollment assistance throughout the state in the local clinics. We have also developed a program. A number of tribes throughout the state sponsor premium payments for their members who are enrolled in ACA health plans. And historically, those have had to be administered on an individual basis. So if you can imagine getting a stack of invoices every month. So we developed a program to aggregate those premiums and get them rolled up into a single monthly payment to simplify the administration of those health plans. And the third major component of the program really is kind of an advocacy role in terms of working with our State Division of Insurance and working with all of our insurance carrier partners to make sure that cost sharing and limited cost sharing claims are being processed efficiently and accurately under the requirements of the Affordable Care Act. So again, it's been a great pleasure to work with Director Wilson and our other directors of the state, and really appreciate the opportunity to be here today.
Thanks for the great work. Anyone else wish to intervene in some way?
Just real quickly, Monica Schiffer with Nevada Medicaid, the tribal liaison there, and I would like to second Director Cook's words about Ms. Wilson here and how her the Tribal Health Center here just really works so well with the state partners. I've appreciated what they've helped me learn in my role here, and what they do often will roll out to some of our smaller health clinics and health centers. They do look towards what Reno-Sparks does, and also with our IHS partners and Director Wilson, just really, really great partnership with the state.